Hello pilots and ground crew, welcome back to my channel. I haven't put anything out on quadcopters for a while, and as it happens I'm in the process of a new build which was going to include the Runcam split, but I had to send that back to Runcam. I had a problem, so I've cancelled it for now. I was quite happy, there was no problems in that sense. They was going to send me a new one. Right, but I've cancelled it for now because I'm hoping there's going to be a sale sort of January time, so I thought I'll wait and order one then. But anyway, getting back to the video, yeah, I was going to do a complete build video of my new 210 size I'm building, but I thought, what's the point? There is so many good videos out there. Joshua Bardwell's just put one up with a full build, and he takes you through everything, including the beta flight software installation, the BLHeli and stuff, every bit of it. Also, a while back now, quite a while ago, a few years ago, Simpson did one for the absolute beginners, RCModelReviews. I think he even used a ZMR 250 frame. Now that is going back a bit, isn't it? The old ZMR frames. But he's done one. He split it into about six parts. Six parts. Evil man. No, but that's really good as well, especially for the absolute beginner, because he's used the cheapest possible components he could get his hands on that were still good to use, if you know what I mean. But also Stu, UAVfutures, Flitetest, I could go on and on and on. There's loads of good build videos out there. So what I wanted to do basically is not exactly do a build video, but more of a jump shot of how I put my quad together and what I'm using for this particular build, the 210. And how I did it. But when I say jump shots, I'll be taking you through little bits at a time, and if you see anything I'm doing wrong, please tell me. You're always learning in this hobby. I might have built quite a few, but things change and you're always learning in this hobby. And I hope you get a few little bits of good information for any new pilots, but that's what I'm doing with this video. My components I'm using, I did a video on the EMAX red bottom motors, the 2205s, 23 kVs with a 30 amp BLHeli Lightning ESCs. I'll be putting them on. The flight control board, right, I ain't gone to town with that. I've just got a basic flight control board that I can get 5 volts coming out of for me VTX, and I've kept it cheap. I'll put a picture up if I come. I got it from eBay. It's the Matex, if that's how you pronounce it. But yeah, some of the components I'm using are cheap, low end, because I'm of a mindset, unless you're building a quad for racing, then you want your best of the best on it if you're going to be using it for competitions, FPV races. But this one is just for me for flying, so I don't have to go to town. Might be putting good motors and good ESCs on, but they're important because they're the things that's going to cause you to crash. But anyhow, getting back to it. Oh, also because I'm not using the Runcam 2, and because I don't want to go to town on video cameras, and because it's a small model, the 210, all I've got is a high definition, right, small, almost like a keychain cam. In fact, a keychain cam. Right, but it does give out good quality image. I'll put some up if I remember. It does put out some good quality image for a little camera, and it was only cheap. It was about 20 quid off eBay, and I've used it on my aeroplanes. Sometimes I put it on the wing and mount it backwards or across the wing. Okay. You're not talking GoPro quality or even Mobius quality, but it's a good quality camera and it'll do for now. Like I say, hoping for the sales. and then I'll be getting the run cam split for it. But let's get to the bench and show you how I've started, what I'm doing, and like I say, it's not exactly a build video, it's more of what I've done to put my quad together, and hopefully someone will find it interesting. Okay then, thanks for watching, and let's get to the bench. And then pilots, here's I suppose part one of my new build. I'll just zoom in so you can see what's going on. My power distribution board, as I said, it's just a basic one. It's a EMAX system, and I bet I've just pronounced that wrong. 3 to 4 cell rated, comes with your XT60 connector. You've seen them all before. These two wires here are just live and negative. I've soldered on to power up my flight control board when I connect that on. You can ignore the little bit of heat shrink on there. Don't know why I put it on actually, but I have, so it can stay on. It's just over my wires running off my cable here for my run cam Eagle, which is running off the 12 volts, and my TBS Team Black Sheep Unified Pro VTX, the video transmitter for your FPV goggles. And like I say, all that is a bit of heat shrink I put off the cables, but I don't know why I put it on, but I did. The Unified Pro, the antenna where you connect your antenna to, a little tip for you, it's not mine. I got it off Joshua Bardwell, and he got it off somebody else, and I can't remember now. When these come, this cable here, your coaxial cable that you connect your antenna on, actually runs off the back this way. You'll know that if you've got one. Well, it's very weak. You have an accident, a bumper crash or whatever, they're very prone to snapping. So if I just move it out the road a bit, if you take it off, which comes off easy, and you'll see that it's just held on with a little piece of it's like it's not hot glue, but it's similar. There's a proper name for it and I don't know, so I'm not going to make one up. But if you take it off, turn it round so it's facing towards the end of the board, as you can see, and then just solder it back on. Or for our American friends, solder it, seeing as I got the idea of Joshua Bardwell. And all I've done is just stuck it onto the bottom of my 210 frame and just put a zip tie around, and the zip tie goes, as you can see, around the cable as well, so it's got even more strength, so that's not coming off in a bad crash. The way I do it, just zoom back out again a little bit, this is how I start. I'll tell you one thing, underneath, I don't know if you'll see under there, I've got my receiver. It's for a Futaba, because I fly with Futaba as well as the Tenergy Evolution, before anyone says you do videos on that. But I've got my Futaba receiver between the frame and the power distribution board, just underneath. I did a video a week or two or a few weeks ago on how to upgrade your Futaba receiver by removing the pins and cutting half the circuit board off, and that's how I've got it under that small area anyway. But as I said, I like to start by putting my VTX on, my receiver, my power distribution board, and the cables for my camera and the VTX. I always start this way, I always have, before I put a single ESC on or anything. However, I do pre-tin the board on the pads that I'm going to use. Okay, so all I've got is tinned up for the ESCs, and that's it, apart from these two wires that'll be powering my flight control board. So that's my basic frame, how I've got it set up to start with, And now let's jump and move on to motors and ESCs. Now what we're using is my EMAX 2503s, my new red bottom motors, which I've already done the video on. So when you get them, you get lots of bags of screws, nuts and bolts everywhere. I've gone through them and I've picked this bag. They're quite small, but for this frame they're perfect. Now how I like to fit them, I know everyone's different, but I like to turn the frame upside down, simply slide the motor in. Now this pin here, right, does move. I don't know if you can see that. It will move, so it needs to. You need to make sure it's free. It can't be catching. It's the bearing. So what I like to do is turn them upside down like this on a bench, line up the holes, making sure everything's centered, and pop the screws in. But I don't tighten them up straight away. I just pop them in and loosely tighten them. Once I've got all 4 motors in, and this comes back to building helicopters, I'll be going around every single motor. Once I've given it a quick test flight, which will be in the garden or even in the kitchen, but a quick test, no, not in the kitchen, a quick test flight just to make sure everything's working fine. And if it is, then like I say, going back to the helicopter days of building, I'll be putting Loctite on every one of these nuts. It's something I always do because I always have. Right, like I say, now they're still quite loose, them screws, so I can move the motor, and I'm just checking that bearing is bang in the middle of the gap, which if you can see, if I can hold it in the right place, it's bang in the middle. Okay, so now I can tighten them up, just hand tight at this point, because you never know, things can go wrong during the build. Just finger tight, I should say. If something goes wrong and you have to take them off, and the last thing you want to do is risk stripping them. Right, so that's one on. Fit perfect. And when I say fit perfect, as in the cable runs straight down the middle of the arm. Sometimes the cables come out at the side, depending on which motors you use. But I'm very happy with that. It's fit perfect. The bearing is running very smooth, not catching on anything. So that's one done. And we'll get the others on exactly the same way. And we'll come back when I start to install the ESCs. Right then, we've got all 4 motors on, and got the ESCs ready to go. What I like to do is put a little piece, I've got it on each of the arms, a little piece of double-sided M3 tape, just to hold the ESC in place. There's no heat shrink on or anything yet, but just so I can measure and mark up, so I know exactly where I want these wires to go, how far I'm going to cut them, and so it doesn't move when I'm soldering the wires from the motor to the ESC. Also, it helps keep the ESC in place when I'm tinning the pads, because that's something you have to do on the tips of the ESC. Just if you don't know, there's 3 little pads, that's where you connect your motors to. They need some solder putting on them. It's called tinning them, and that's what I'm going to be doing now. Hopefully it'll be in shot, but I don't know. I can't see from that angle. I'm just placing a little bit of solder on each one of the pads. bit messy, but let's just tidy that up a little bit and let it flow. Much better. And the second one. Just touching the pad, applying the solder, taking the iron off. Don't know if I'm in shot here, if you can see, just touching the pad, applying solder to the pad. Oops. And taking the iron off. And that's all there is to it. Try not to, I made a bit of a mistake there, try not to keep your soldering iron on them pads for too long, or the heat will go straight through the board and you're liable to cause a few problems. But what I'm going to do next is measure how much wiring I need. Then it's the old moment. Let me just zoom out a little bit. Sorry, wrong way. There you go. Yeah, I'm gonna line up how much of this cable I need to cut off. Now, don't cut your cable off so it just fits. That's the worst thing you want to do. You want to make sure there's a little bit of spare, a little bit of bend in it. You can put a cable tie round or out like that, or an extended piece of heat shrink out you want, but make sure you've got a bit of play. You don't want to cut your cable exactly where it meets your ESC. Worst thing in the world to do. I'm just turning my soldering station down while we're talking. Right, now with this being, as you look at it, the back left, I need this to spin counterclockwise, which basically means I can just wire the wires up exactly how they are in a straight line. If you want your motors to spin clockwise, you have to cross two wires over like that, for argument's sake, then wire them up. But because this one's going to be spinning counterclockwise, I can wire them directly as they are. 1, 2, 3. So let's get these cut then. Now to me that would be perfect, so I'm going about an extra, I'd say what, 5 mil, something like that. And because I'd rather leave more than less, actually I'm going to leave about 10 mil and cut. And because I know these are all going in the same place, I can roughly do the same, line them up and do them all exactly the same size. Whereas the crossed ones, you need to leave one of your wires a little bit longer for crossing it over. There's the bit you want to make sure you get right. If you cut these cables too short, you have had it. You're in a world of pain. Now I'm just stripping a little bit of the silicone wire off the end. You don't need to leave much, a bit more than that though, just to get at the bare wire. I was watching a guy on Flitetest do this, and he had some sort of, well, not a song, that's wrong, but it was cut, split, twist, tin, so he had it in like a way to remember. But just move a little piece of wire, little piece of the heat shrink, sorry. So there's a bit of wire showing. You don't need a lot of wire, maybe a little bit more on that side, not much though. You don't need much wire showing. I mean, it's going to get tinned, and tinning basically means putting a bit of solder on the end. Right, sorry I'm in the road there, I just need to see so I can see what I'm doing here. Whoops, wrong way. you can see what I've done there. Just cut the wires down short, and you can see I've left a hell of a lot, at least 10 millimeters spare, which I can tuck back, which I'm quite happy to do. And that way, if I need to move it or out like that, I've got a bit of space, a bit of play to play with. But what I'm going to do now is tin these wires like we did the ESC. Put a bit of solder on the end of each wire, so when we connect them to the ESC, they'll simply stick. Like I think I've said in a previous video, if you do joinery, it's the same sort of principle. Put a piece of wood glue on both ends of wood, rub them together, and all of a sudden they stick. But if you don't do joinery, you won't know that. Right, I'm just letting my there you go, it's done. My soldering station heat up, but it's already done. I'm just putting a tiny bit of solder on my tip, and I'm just applying heat to the wire, putting the solder on, letting it flow. Don't want to, I nearly said you don't want too much on, but you don't really want too much on, but you definitely try not to touch the wire or the wiring will shrink, will melt. That's a bit too much. Just clean that off. A little bit on this one. Yeah. Let's say for new pilots, this is called tinning. Basically means putting a little bit of solder on the edge of your wire. Just clean my soldering iron again. Always try and keep the tip of your soldering iron as clean as possible from old solder. You can always add a tiny bit of new solder as you're doing your job, but try and keep your tip, I don't know if you can see that, that's not very good actually, but try and keep your tip as clean as possible when you are actually soldering. Right, as I said, I can connect these 1, 2, 3 straight off. So I'll start with the back one. Figure out which way you want your motors, the cables, sorry. I'll just zoom out a bit, I don't know if you can see that, wrong way. There you go. Figure out which way you want these cables to be bent straight away. You want them going that way, inwards, whichever. Well, because mine's going to the back, I'm quite happy at putting mine down in that position. Can you see that? Of course you can. Right, so as I've said before, some people use tweezers. I like the secateurs, we're not gardening, hemostats. Now all you want to do is get your soldering iron nice and hot, and just a touch of heat. Oops. Well, that was bloody clever, wasn't it? Sorry about that. That's just where my bloody battery died on my camera. I could see it flashing at me. I thought I was going to get away with it and finish off that ESC, then jump to this bit. But all I did with the ESC was solder them wires together. As you can see here, I've gone round and I've done the rest. I've connected up all the ESCs, and on the corners here, just where the wiring was, I've just run a piece of electrical tape just to cover the wires up, that's all. You don't have to do that, but if you hit a twig, I suppose it could catch the wire, but the chances are very slim. So now we're at what I like to call the bird's nest stage, where you've got cables sticking out everywhere. And I try and just wrap them round to keep them as well neat as possible while you're working. The easiest thing to do is what I like to do. Oh, I'm gonna have to move. Bloody hell. Is just get, obviously you're only going to be working on one motor at a time, so I just like to wrap the cables round, just put a piece of sellotape or whatever, plastic band, and just tie them back, tie 3 of them back, because you're only going to be working on one at a time anyway, so it just keeps all the cabling out the road. But yeah, all I've done with the ESCs is soldered them up, The wires that I want to spin clockwise I've crossed, which I mentioned, put heat shrink round and a zip tie. There's that double-sided tape underneath, that M3 tape, but a zip tie and a little bit of heat shrink, and that's it. But yeah, because we're only working on one cable at a time, I just put a piece of sticky tape round to keep it a bit neater. Right then, now let's undo this part of the bird's nest. Just shove that under there. Now this bit again, new pilots, the red is positive, the black is negative. On your PDB, your power distribution board, or as I called it in the beginning, the flight control board for some strange reason, on each of your corners you'll have a plus and a minus. The plus is for your red, the minus is for your black. If you don't know that, you don't really want to be building one of these. If you've got no idea about electrics and polarity, read about it first before even attempting to build one of these. Because if you get these mixed up the wrong way around, you get what Bruce Simpson likes to call magic smoke. And you'll burn out, you can burn out your ACs, your motors, you're in a world of trouble if you start wiring stuff up completely wrong. As soon as you plug your battery in, you're in a world of trouble. So read about it first. Right, now to keep this neat, just move them two wires out the road again. To keep this neat, I try and measure up just the same as the AC actually. I'll try zooming in a bit. I know I'll have to move the quad now I've done that, but whoops, come on. I think we're about there. Exactly the same thing as what we did with the motors to the ESC. Work out where your cable's going to go, like here. My red cable's going to go on the inside there to the positive. Now that would fit perfect there, but I don't want to cut it there. I want to leave a little bit extra once again. But I'm going to start with a negative, because I have to run that one to keep everything on the inside. I have to run that one round. So that's the one I want to cut first, but not solder first. This is the one that I'm marking where I'm going to cut. You'll understand why in a second. I know that is enough. I've got a bit of slack, or I'll have a bit of slack, and I'll just cut it off there. Now I'll move that to one side, because I want to. The first thing I want to solder on is the red one, and then swing that round and connect on the black one. The reason why I cut it first is to make sure, because if you've already got your red cable in and soldered up, trying to solder that in there and get it measured is very difficult. So I like to do the red first and leave enough room. Once again, I'm marking where there's enough room and then just giving it an extra, I'd say what, 5-6 mil, maybe a little bit more, not that much more though. Yeah, that'll do. And cutting that off there. Now, just like the motors, taking a little piece of wire, the heat shrink, the silicone wire off the cable from the ESC, do both of them, and then I will be tinning it up, maybe a little bit more on that one because it's on a, there you go. Then we'll be tinning it up and wiring them in, or soldering them in. Like I say, the red will go straight there, the black will go straight round. Now you've just seen me do that with the ESC, or almost saw me do it with the ESC. So once again, I'm just going to cut this bit, get that done, come back, show you, get the rest done. Okay then, Got all the ESCs wired up now. Now the next bit is optional. I don't always do it, but most of the time I do. I like to put some hot glue over these connections before putting the flight control board on. You don't have to, but I like to do it just in case I have a crash and the grass is a bit damp or something like that, and it just helps stop moisture from getting into your circuit board. Not everyone does it, but I know a lot of pilots do it. But like I say, I like to apply a piece of hot glue, a squirt of hot glue over the connections where I've soldered wires in. Okay, so just waiting for my hot glue gun to heat up, then I'll be doing that, come back and show you, then we'll be moving on to the flight control board. She's starting to look like a quadcopter now. Right, I missed a bit. Before putting the hot glue on, what I like to do is check that I haven't got any shorts. Make sure all the 12 volts are 12 volts and the 5s are 5s, and make sure I haven't got any shorts. That's where your multimeters come in. You must own a multimeter if you want to build a quadcopter. Now I would say, in my opinion, but I would say you must own a multimeter, know how to work one if you want to build anything electrical, so you can test that as you go along you haven't made a big mistake. Just plugging in the board. Now we're going to go red on this ESC, black on this ESC, and it's coming in at 11.67, which is fine. And try this ESC. .67, and the back one 11.67, and the front, don't know if you can see, 11.67. Going to check me 12 volt for my camera. I've just switched them right. If you get these the wrong way around, it's not the end of the world. If you put the black on the red one and the red on the black one, it's just going to come up minus. So you'll still get your reading, but it'll say minus, so you'll still get an idea. But anyway, right, the small little 12 volt which I'm using for me VTX comes in at 10.35 on this board, but that's still fine. It isn't over the 12 volt mark, and my 5 volts for my VTX, I should say, I can't get the bloody thing here. There you go. My 5 volts are coming in at 4.912. Yeah, 4.92. So considering my Unified Pro runs off 5 volts, I know that is absolutely fine. These 2 wires I've got running off to power my flight control board, I know is absolutely fine because they're in the 5 volts. Now I'm just switching my multimeter to check we've got no shorts, and how that works is, if I put these together, you might hear, hopefully you can hear a beep there. So if I've got 2 wires which are crossed, as in, now on this side I'll touch the red, and on this side I'll touch the black, and we should get no noise. If we had done, we'd have got a problem. For argument's sake, now we'll touch the red to the red, and we get a beep, which is great. That means the red's connected to the red, as in the positive is connected to the positive, and the negative is running to the negative, which is absolutely fine. So after checking all that, that's fine. I'm just doing something for myself here. Yeah, that's a spare 11 volt, I thought it was. Right, so we can unplug her. Oh, that's a tight lipo. And now I can apply the hot glue. I'm not going to leave the camera running while I put hot glue on something. Back in a minute. Right then, that's all hot glued up. Just as you can see anyhow, just a bit of hot glue over the bare wiring. Now it's the flight control board. Now this is where a lot of people will be shocked, because they'll be waiting for me to get some sort of NAS board out or something like that. Well, no. I'm using a CC3D board. Now, when they first came out, that type of board, it was for open pilot, which a lot of us use because there wasn't really much out else. Well, there was, but open pilot was quite popular. Well, they went into liquidation, and a Libre pilot took over. Now, yeah, I usually fly with Beta Flight or Clean Flight, but since the Libre pilot's taken over Open Pilot, they brought out some new software, and I was looking at it and I was quite impressed, and it's pretty straightforward to use, whereas if anyone knows, you can easily start to get lost with Beta Flight. It can get very complicated very fast. So on this build, I'm putting a CC3D board on, and I'm going to, the software is going to be Libre Pilot, the latest version, the Rhino 2, I can't remember, I'd be lying. But just go to librepilot.com and you'll find it. So that's what I'm going to try on this board. So I've already got my flight control board. Now, I'll just stop here. On the end of your servos, on the end of your ESCs, you have a little, well, servo pin plug, a GST, which goes into your flight control board. Now, most boards, if I grab an old one, will have pins similar to this, and you just plug them straight in. Now, there's a more modern way of doing it, which most, well, a lot of the professional pilots do it this way, and basically I won't say it's the easiest way, but it's quite straightforward, so to speak. Whereas you cut the cable to the length you want, keeps it a lot neater, and you solder the cables directly. You've removed your pins. Some boards come with no pins, some boards come with the pins, but on this board it had pins. So I've unsoldered all the pins, put a little blob of solder in all the holes that I'll be using, and I'll be cutting the cable and soldering the cable straight to the board. Now I'll get it set up and ready to go, and then I'll show you. But remember, it's not difficult, because these ESCs, like a lot of ESCs nowadays, only come with the ground and the signal wire. Hence these two cables here to power my flight control board. Red and brown, ground and live. So all you need to do is connect your signal and your grounding, and that's why I cut them short, solder them in. I'll get this set up and ready. I might even do a couple, and then I'll come back and we'll talk through it a bit more again. Okay, cheers. Right, I hope you can see this here. Because I'm going to use Libre Pilot, the motors run, this is the front here. Oh, you can't see it. Yeah, you can. This is the front, and the motors run from left to right. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So different to Beta Flight, we know, but we're not using Beta Flight. All I've done is, for motor 1, I have cut the GST connector off the end of the cable, removed it and just tinned the end. And on the flight control board, on port 1, I'll be soldering up the ground and the signal. The signal will always be closest to the centre of the board, and that's just about any board you use. Now somebody will say this particular board's different, but most boards your signal wire is nearest to the centre of your flight control board. However, I'll be starting this one with the ground. On position number 1 with motor 1 to the ground. And I've turned my bloody soldering station down again. I hate it when I do that. Get talking, I turn my soldering station down so it's got no heat. I'll simply recap. Over here is motor 1, over here is motor 2, then straight down 3 and straight across 4. Like I say, I'm running this, the CC3D board, to use Libre Pilot, because the new software that they're running looks quite good. I'll tell you more once I've tried it. So, try again. Soldering station's heated up a bit more now. Just putting a touch of solder on my tip of the soldering iron, and hopefully you can see. Just ground. If I can get my bloody... There you go. And now the signal wire. Trying to do this so you can see, and that's why it's bloody awkward. Signal wire, as we said, will always be the closest to the centre of the board, which is there on number 1. There we go. And that's the ground and the signal wire soldered into pin 1 from servo and motor 1, which is the top left with a Libre Pilot. Now I'm just going to go around and do the rest, and then I'll come back to you. Right, I've got all the ESCs wired in. I've also connected up me 5 volts to power the flight control board, me plus and ground. I've put that in spare channel number 5, and we're basically there. All I need to do now is give it a quick test to check no magic smoke comes out, but I've double checked my wires and everything. Just going to plug me LiPo back in to check everything powers up and there's no problems. I've unplugged my VTX just in, well, not just in case, because I haven't got an antenna connected to the coax. Even though with these Unified Pros from Team Black Sheep, it does say you can power them for, I think it was up to 8 minutes without an antenna on, but it's not really worth the risk. Basically, if you haven't got an antenna connected to your flight recorder, if you haven't got an antenna connected up to your VTX, your video transmission for your goggles, unplug it, which I have done. So let's plug a battery in, and hopefully no magic smoke, just lights. Looking good. Well, that's the flight control board powering up. ESCs are all powering up, and there's no magic smoke, as Bruce Simpson calls it, and everything looks good. All ready to get the software installed. So, unplug and zoom out. Wrong way. So basically she's just about there. What I will be doing later on, right, is also putting a little piece of hot glue across these cables as well, but I'll be doing that after I've done all the software and everything like that, just in case there's a problem with this board, because this is an old board I've dug out, an old CC3D board which I have had years, quite a few years. So anyway, I'm not going to connect the cameras on or out like that. The next thing will be the software. Now, to be quite honest, there's lots and lots of videos on software installation, so I probably won't bother showing you that. Just type in LibrePilot or even OpenPilot in YouTube search engine and you will find lots and lots of information. I'll be back again once the software is installed for a quick flight test before taking it to the field for a proper flight test. Okay then, well let's jump cut again and I'll see you in a minute. There you go then pilots, she's all finished. Got the software installed, checked it, it's all working perfectly. Put that bit of hot glue over the top. The antennas from the receiver simply got running through a piece of heat shrink on, sticking out the back. This is my Unified Pro for my antenna to connect onto, my FPV. Got the Runcam Eagle installed. I've also on the top, on a spare channel, soldered on a buzzer which I've got set up to my transmitter, just to flick a switch. And that's it basically. That's the little camera I was talking about. You'd have seen a bit of the footage at the beginning. She's a great little, considering the price, she's a great little camera. Right? I don't know why I don't use it more often actually, because the quality is not too bad. Like I say, we're not talking GoPro out like that, but for a cheap little camera you just can't moan in my opinion. Right then, let's take it downstairs, got a bit of room, and give her a quick little test, and then if she flies okay, no problems, we'll get her to the field. Okay then, I hope you enjoyed this. I tried to keep it quick, but I know for a fact it's dragged on. Little tutorial of how I built this QAV210 and what I've got inside her. Okay then, let's go for a quick little flight test downstairs, and then everything's fine, we'll hit the field. So, cheers and thanks for watching. Well, only one way to find out.
56-7W, subject Airwolf, top secret. A Mach 1 Plus attack helicopter with the most advanced weapons arsenal in the air. Sought by governments friendly and foreign, Airwolf is hidden somewhere in the western wilderness by its test pilot Stringfellow Hawk, to be returned to the U.S. government only if his brother Sinjin, an MIA in Vietnam, can be found. The deputy director of the intelligence agency that developed Airwolf is Michael Colesmith Briggs III, codename Archangel, believed to covertly provide classified information and support to Hawk in exchange for flying the chopper on missions of national interest. Stringfellow Hawk is 34.